So,
Yeah.
okay, so you was born and raised in Harlem. You started playing ball in Harlem, right?
Yeah. Right.
You moved to Brooklyn,
Yeah.
right? Let me
Yeah.
try to get it right. So, how did you get involved with hip hop,
So
Tony T?
I started hip hop in Harlem. So I had a friend
Okay.
that I grew up with, Little Pop. He taught me how to rhyme like in 74, 75. I was a little young kid, you know. He taught me how to rhyme then, you know, and at the time I think I was in I went to PS 76, then I went to Watley, and later on I went to Brandeis. But when I went to Brandeis, I had moved to the Bronx. When I moved to the Bronx, then I got hooked up
Okay.
with the Ultimate 3 MCs, and I got down with DJ WizKid and Kool Herc. Kool Herc had booked a couple of parties for us back then, like in 1980, 81. You know what I mean? That's when I really learned how to,
Okay.
you know, rap and stuff like that, you know, all about DJ and stuff. But I watched you guys too. I watched the Sapphire Crew. I remember Ray Vaughn and Johnny Wah, you know what I mean? Dougie Fresh. Like I remember watching a lot of guys in Harlem too, even the Harlem World crew. Because at one time I used to work at the Harlem World. You know, they had a little restaurant outside, you know what I mean? I used to work in a restaurant with them. And I used to hang out with the Harlem World crew sometimes. Every time, you know, when they throw a block party, sometimes they let me come on, get on the mic, you know. So that was like my first introduction to hip hop. Eventually, I moved out to Brooklyn. And a lot of people say that, you know, they didn't take this from the Bronx or they didn't take this from Harlem. Everything I learned from the Bronx, everything I learned in Harlem, for guys like you and Cold Crush and Fantastic and Funky Four, I took all that stuff to Brooklyn. It's crazy. Like people talk about how Bronx started hip hop, and they did, but there was a lot of hip hop people out in Brooklyn too. You know what I mean? And people don't know that. They just didn't have the best MCs in Brooklyn. They had great DJs,
Right.
they had great sound systems, but they didn't have the MCs. But when I went out to Brooklyn, I was like a king. They was calling me Tony T from Uptown. You know what I'm saying? And I just gave them that Harlem Bronx flavor, and they loved it. I mean, they really loved it. That's where I made most of my bones at in Brooklyn with DJ Watkins. That was my partner back then. You know, we had a crew, DJ Watkins and MC Tony T. You know, we made a couple of singles and stuff like that. You know, went on a couple of tours with, you know, Houdini and Eric B. Rakim and Kumo D. You know, shout out to my band Grandmaster D. You know, so that's how I got to Brooklyn. You know what I mean? But I started out in Harlem, in the Bronx, you know, playing with some of the pioneers of hip hop today. You know what I mean? There's a lot of history in hip hop. And, you know, back then, like Kool Herc was like, he was the first mogul, producer, promoter. You know, he did everything. You know what I'm saying? And I think the hip hop artists today, they owe some of the pioneers, especially like you, they owe y'all some money. They owe y'all a lot of money. They need to cut some checks. Each hip hop artist today need to pay at least $1 million back to the old school pioneers that started this culture. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Like y'all, they wouldn't be making as much money as they're making right now if it wasn't for the pioneers that started this whole thing. You know what I mean? And some of that culture is missing because, like, some of the stuff they do today, you know, they ain't what we did back in the days. You know what I'm saying? But through social media and internet and all that, these guys they're millionaires now. They're millionaires. You know, imagine we were in this era, how rich we would be. We'd be multi-millionaires too.